So as progressives, you already know that Donald Trump has proposed a plethora of domestic policies that would harm various groups, ranging from Muslims to the LGBT community to the Hispanic community. But he proposed a new domestic policy that is so dim-witted that it would literally harm himself, potentially. So, according to The Hill, Donald Trump says he would roll back food safety regulations if he's elected as president. They explain in a fact sheet posted online Thursday, the campaign highlighted a number of specific regulations to be eliminated under the GOP nominee's economic plan, including what they called the FDA Food Police. It reads, the FDA Food Police, which dictate how the federal government expects farmers to produce fruits and vegetables and even dictates the nutritional content of dog food. The rules govern the soil farmers use, farm and food production hygiene, food packaging, food temperatures, and even what animals may roam which fields and when. It also greatly increases inspections of food facilities and levies new taxes to pay for this inspection overkill. Now, this push to roll back food safety standards by Donald Trump comes just after the FDA proposed 7 new rules that would make them more effective in regulating and potentially stopping foodborne illnesses. Quote, manufacturers of both animal and human food are now required to implement preventative controls to minimize the risk of contaminating food when it's manufactured, processed, packed, or held by a faculty. Now, to any normal person who reads this, they'd think, oh, okay, well, this is good. It's for my own interest for the FDA to regulate things that could potentially make us sick. But Donald Trump is not like ordinary people. He is a lot more dim-witted than average citizens. I hate to be a dick, but it's true. And look, you can make the argument that the FDA could be reformed in order to make it more effective, and you could even argue that they need to take more steps to ensure that the food we're consuming is safe. But here's what you can't argue. You can't argue that they should do less. He's saying that he doesn't want them to make sure that greedy corporations aren't regulated. So he wants them to be able to cut corners just to save a few pennies at the expense of our public health. Now, look, I already know, anticipating criticism from libertarians, that they're going to say, well, you know, this isn't too problematic because even if the government isn't regulating these companies who create and sell food, then the free market is going to regulate these companies, and the free market will always sort out these types of companies who do want to cut corners. So don't worry about it, Mike. I mean, the free market's going to sort them all out. Right. Okay, so this is what you're essentially arguing by saying that. You're saying that it's okay if a company wants to use a chemical to preserve food longer, just because it'll save them money, because if people die from that, we'll find out about it, and then we'll boycott that company, and then inevitably they'll go out of business. But how many people have to die before, quote, the market sorts it out? Maybe we should take precautions before anyone is injured and just regulate them from the start. See, because what you're doing is you're saying we should be skeptical of big government, which we should be, but you're also contending simultaneously that we should not be skeptical of big businesses. I say we be skeptical of them both and do what we can to make sure that the food that goes in our bodies is safe. I mean, I feel like I'm being pretty reasonable by saying that I don't want companies to poison the food that I buy so they can save money. Is this not reasonable? To just remove all food safety regulations or a substantial portion, well, things would get exponentially worse. I mean, think about the frequency to which food safety recalls occur. Do you think that corporations would actually spend the money to recall certain food items after they've been released if it wasn't for the government breathing down their necks? Well, of course they wouldn't. Now, Donald Trump lives in the United States, so obviously he's going to be affected by this as well, since he eats the food sold in U.S. grocery stores. So try to roll back food safety regulations, Trump, I dare you. And when you get sick or you have a national health crisis on your watch as president, well, I'd be willing to bet that you're going to want those food safety regulations back immediately. Now, this is just an addition to him saying he's going to cut regulations when it comes to the EPA. So he doesn't want us to have safe food. He doesn't want us to have a clean environment. Are you just misanthropic and you hate all humans? You want us to die? I mean, that's what it seems like, right? You don't want to regulate polluters. You don't want to regulate companies who create our foods. What do you want to regulate? I mean, this impacts you too, dumbass. So by cutting back on food safety standards, you're putting your own family's health in jeopardy. You're putting the nation's health in jeopardy. It's just completely ridiculous. And people tell me all the time, I always hear this, liberalism is a mental disorder. Oh, that's what conservatives say. Look, at least I know, even if you disagree with me on economic policy and domestic and foreign policy, at least I know what the hell is in my own best interest, okay? I don't vote against my own interests. I don't do things or push for policies that are against my own interest. By rolling back food safety standards, I know very well, it's common sense, that that's against my own interest. I don't want my family to eat food that's potentially unhealthy because companies want to save money. And look, he even talks about dog food, how they try to regulate nutrition of dog food, as if that's so absurd. Yeah, I want to make sure that my pets are healthy too. Is that so crazy? I mean, I feel like Donald Trump is so detached from reality that nothing you say to him can penetrate his brain. But here's what's awesome. After people started to get wind of this and criticize him for it, he later took down his fact sheet from his website. Because he just couldn't take the criticism. And I don't think there's any reasonable response to someone who argues that they want safe food. What are you going to tell them? No, you shouldn't have safe food. You're going to be taxed for it. Okay, well, if there's anything that I want to be taxed for, it's to make sure my food is safe. So there's nothing that he can do to save himself from this. So he deleted it off his website, and that's that. So hopefully this is the last of it. But I never want to hear a Republican saying something this stupid, because, I mean, this even affects them. I get the climate change thing, because if you're Donald Trump and you're 70 years old or however old he is, you're not going to see the main consequences or the most devastating consequences of climate change come to fruition. That's not going to happen for decades. But with this, you see an immediate effect. They cut corners immediately. You get sick. It's just stupid. I just don't. It just proves that Donald Trump is not a serious candidate.